Just as slavery once marred our nation's conscience by subjecting millions to the whims of those who prioritized profit over human dignity, the repeal of Roe v. Wade has brought us to a new moral crossroads where the lives of unborn babies are still at risk. Many of us believed that overturning Roe would lead to a decrease in abortions, a collective sigh of relief that the tide was turning. Instead, we're facing a harsh reality. Abortions haven't just continued, they've shifted, with a troubling rise in terminated pregnancies facilitated by telehealth and the use of the abortion pill. This method now accounts for 63% of all abortions in America, fueled by the convenience of telehealth services and mail-order prescriptions. The culture of death has simply adapted, finding new ways to propagate itself. And it's clearer than ever that the fight for life is far from over. Following the overturn of Roe v. Wade, the battle over abortion rights has shifted to the states, where a wave of constitutional amendments aimed to enshrine abortion rights is gaining momentum. States such as Maryland, New York, and Nebraska are pushing to make abortion a constitutional right. These amendments go beyond simple legislative strategies. They aim to solidify a culture of death into state laws. Success in these initiatives will severely limit efforts to protect the unborn. It would entrench the most vulnerable in a legal system that denies their right to life. To date, a historic number of statewide ballot measures concerning abortion, 11 in total, were confirmed for the 2024 general election ballot in 10 states: Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Maryland, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New York, Nevada, and South Dakota. Below is a breakdown of the proposed amendments organized by state. Arizona. Proposition 139 in Arizona aims to enshrine abortion in the state's constitution as a right, prohibiting any state interference until the fetus reaches viability. The amendment would also nullify existing state laws that conflict with this right. Arizona has approximately 13,300 abortions in 2023, demonstrating a clear need for a return to biblical truth and righteousness. Colorado. In Colorado, the initiative would prohibit state or local governments from denying or impeding any abortion and allow abortion to be a covered service under health insurance plans. The initiative would repeal Section 50 of Article 5 of the Colorado Constitution, adopted in 1984, which prohibited the use of public funds for abortion. This amendment would make it nearly impossible to enact more restrictive abortion laws in the future. With over 25,200 abortions in 2023, Colorado stands at a crossroads between life and death. Florida. The proposed amendment in Florida would guarantee a constitutional right to abortion before viability or when, quote, necessary to protect the patient's health, end quote, as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. This amendment would also seek to overturn current restrictions on abortion access in the state. Supporters of the initiative include the ACLU of Florida, Planned Parenthood, Florida Women's Freedom Coalition, Florida Rising, SEIU 1199 Florida, and Women's Voices of Southwest Florida. Florida recorded over 85,600 abortions in 2023, showing the tragic consequences of forsaking our moral compass. Maryland. The proposed amendment in the state's constitution, Question 1 in Maryland, seeks to enshrine the right to so-called reproductive freedom, including the right to choose an abortion. This legislation would also prevent the state from interfering with or denying a person's right to make their own reproductive decisions. Those supporting the constitutional amendment include Governor Wes Moore, Democrat, Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller, Democrat, Maryland State Education Association, Pro-Choice Maryland, and Maryland AFL-CIO. Governor Moore said, quote, "I've been very clear from the beginning that as long as I am the governor of Maryland, our state will be a safe haven for abortion access. This constitutional amendment will ensure it remains that way no matter who's in office," end quote. With over 39,000 abortions reported in Maryland in 2023, there is a dire need for a moral awakening. Missouri. Missouri's proposed amendment provides that the state's legislature may enact laws that regulate abortion after fetal viability, which is defined in the initiative as, quote, in the good faith judgment of a treating healthcare professional and based on the particular facts of the case. There is a significant likelihood of the fetus's sustained survival outside of the uterus without the application of extraordinary medical measures, end quote. Missouri's significant decrease, around 152 abortions in 2023, highlight the need to protect these gains from being undone by a culture intent on death. Montana. The constitutional amendment would create an explicit constitutional right to abortion. Currently, abortion in Montana depends on case law surrounding the Constitution's right to privacy provision. In Armstrong v. State, 1999, the Montana Supreme Court held that the state's Constitution's right to privacy included a right to abortion until fetal viability. Montanans Securing Reproductive Rights, MSRR, is leading the campaign in support of the initiative. Planned Parenthood Advocates of Montana, the ACLU of Montana, Forward Montana, and the Fairness Project support MSRR. MSRR said, quote, now is the time to ensure that power remains in the hands of the people of Montana, so everyone has the freedom to prevent, continue, or end a pregnancy should they choose. Politicians have no business controlling our bodies and our futures. We know that Montanans will show up for their right to control their own bodies, access to health care they need, and secure their right to abortion, end quote. Nebraska. In Nebraska, the measure would amend Article 1 of the Nebraska Constitution to add a new section providing a right to abortion until fetal viability, which is defined as, quote, the point in pregnancy when, in the professional judgment of the patient's treating healthcare practitioner, there is a significant likelihood of the fetus's sustained survival outside of the uterus without the application of extraordinary medical measures, end quote. With around 2,600 abortions in 2023, Nebraska needs the voice of the church to rise and demand justice for the unborn. In my earlier article, Nebraska Ballot Initiative, I discussed how a pro-life organization aims to enable a 12-week abortion limit into the state's constitution. This strategy by the pro-life movement, however, is also fundamentally flawed. New York. New York is considering an amendment that would codify the right to abortion in the state's constitution. The ballot measure would amend the Equal Protection Clause of the New York Constitution to prohibit a person's right from being denied based upon their, quote, ethnicity, national origin, age, and disability, end quote, as well as their, quote, sex, including sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, pregnancy outcomes, and reproductive health care autonomy, end quote. In support of the amendment, Planned Parenthood of Greater New York said, quote, the ERA would upgrade the state's constitution to explicitly prohibit discrimination by the government based upon a person's ethnicity, national origin, age, disability, and sex, including their sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, pregnancy, and pregnancy outcomes, end quote. With 125,490 abortions reported in 2023. It is a testament to the depth of our moral crisis. Nevada. Nevada is considering an amendment that would establish the right to an abortion in the Nevada Constitution until fetal viability or when to protect the life or health of the pregnant patient. The amendment would establish that this right will not be denied, burdened, or infringed upon by a compelling state interest, which is defined as, quote, an interest in which is limited exclusively to the state's interest in protecting, maintaining, or improving the health of an individual who is seeking abortion care that is consistent with accepted clinical standards of practice, end quote. Nevada had approximately 16,000 abortions in 2023, indicating the depth of the moral battle we face. South Dakota. South Dakota's proposed constitutional amendment G would provide a state constitutional right to abortion and provide that the state cannot regulate abortion before the end of the first trimester. During the second trimester of pregnancy, the state may regulate abortion, but, quote, only in ways that are reasonably related to the physical health of the pregnant woman, end quote. And during the third trimester of pregnancy, the state may regulate or prohibit abortion except, quote, when abortion is necessary in the medical judgment of the woman's physician to preserve the life and health of the pregnant woman, end quote. South Dakota has around 30 abortions in 2023, reflecting the existing restrictive laws and the potential damage this amendment could cause. These initiatives are not about policy tweaks. They're about embedding a culture of death into the bedrock of these states' legal systems. Once the right to abortion is enshrined in a state's constitution, reversing it would require another constitutional amendment. This process demands extraordinary effort, widespread support, and overcoming intense political opposition. We cannot afford to let this happen. The only response is an unequivocal demand for the abolition of abortion in its entirety. The financial muscle behind the pro-abortion push. To understand the scale of this challenge, we must recognize the financial muscle behind the pro-abortion push. Money talks, and right now it's shouting loud and clear in support of abortion. Massive financial investments are driving the push to secure these constitutional amendments. In Colorado alone, the group Coloradans for Protecting Reproductive Freedom raised approximately $4.36 million and spent around $3.62 million as of mid-2024. These funds are being used to promote the amendment, which aims to protect abortion and repeal the ban on using public funds for abortion services. In contrast, Pro-Life Colorado, which opposes the amendment, has not reported significant campaign finance activity by the same date. This financial disparity is no accident. It is a calculated effort by pro-abortion advocates to outspend and outmaneuver those who stand for life. Similar financial strategies are in other states with millions of dollars funneled into advertisements, misinformation campaigns, and grassroots mobilization efforts to sway public opinion. The consequences of these amendments being enshrined in the state constitution are profound. Once such rights are embedded in the Constitution, reversing or amending them would require a significant legislative effort, making it nearly impossible to impose more restrictive abortion laws through the usual legislative process. The only answer to this financial onslaught is a steadfast commitment to the abolition of abortion, driven by reliance on God, not the size of our war chest. Don't be lulled to sleep. It is easy to be lulled into a false sense of security by incremental victories. The pro-life establishment has convinced many that 12-week abortion bans, heartbeat bills, and other half measures are enough. But these so-called victories are short-term gains that fail to address the core issue. The pro-choice movement knows this, which is why they're moving to enshrine the right to an abortion in state constitutions. By bypassing the legislative process and appealing directly to the electorate, they're securing long-term victories that will be nearly impossible to overturn. The harsh truth is that these half measures do not truly protect life from the moment of conception. They allow for the continued destruction of the unborn under the guise of partial progress. What's needed now is equal protection under the law, an unambiguous stance that every human life deserves protection from conception. Anything less is a dangerous form of capitulation that ultimately fails to uphold the sanctity of life. Conclusion. A rally cry for abolition. This is a national issue, and every state that enshrines abortion rights in its constitution brings us closer to a nation where life is no longer sacred. The battle we face is not just a political one. It is a moral and spiritual struggle for the very soul of our nation. The stakes have never been higher. Now is the time for unified, decisive action. We must rise to the challenge, get informed, mobilize our communities, and take a stand for life. The future of our society depends on the actions we take today. Abolish abortion. protect the unborn, and make your voice heard. We're not merely seeking to regulate or restrict. We are fighting for the total eradication of abortion in our nation. History will judge us by our commitment to this cause. Will we stand firm in our resolve to end this atrocity, or will we allow the sanctity of life to be compromised? The choice is ours, and the time to act is now.